Okay, we thank everybody for attending this pretty much the last session of our Marketplace Ministry seminars for the year, October being our last month. And in November, we usually have our roundtable where we bring all of our leaders together to start discussing topics and subjects for 2022. And in 2022, the Marketplace Ministry is going to be led by none other than Sister Chris King. She's also our presenter today, where she will be talking about creating an operations manual. And if you haven't seen the other recordings that we've made, this is a recording that Christine is doing a continuation, so to speak. It's like our pastor preaching for a month on the same topic. Well, she started talking earlier this year about the business, creating the business, and now she wants to make sure that we're doing the right thing by creating an operations manual. So she's going to be our speaker. She will also be managing and controlling the Marketplace Ministry for the 2022 session as well. She sent me a list of the topics, some really interesting topics. So really stay tuned. And if you don't catch it on First Met TV, we will be continuing our seminars every third Saturday, every month for the year of 2020. So without any further ado, I want to turn the reins or hand the baton over to Chris King, and she is an entrepreneur. She's a professor. She has very strong ties to the SBA. I don't know what the sister don't do and where she finds the time to do all the things that she does. She owns a business called Pampered Sisters, and Christy, I'd like for you to get more into that as well. But let me go ahead and turn the controls over to you. I see you have your PowerPoint already up on the screen. So, Christine, take it away.
Good morning, everyone. Thank you for being here. And as Elder Daniel said, that creating a business and following through the business is very important. But this part of the business is the final leg that a lot of people in business seem to do as they go along, a DIY, unless you're a turnkey operation, such as a franchise. So what I'm doing is trying to just shed a little light on why it's so important to have an operations manual. So today we will talk about what is an operations manual, the operations manual versus a business plan, policies, procedures, and processes, what to include in the operation manual, how to create one, when to implement it, and working the process for success. Okay, so a lot of times in business, as you start to grow, one of the common things that you say is, I need to hire someone to do what I do, but I just don't have the time for them to follow me around and learn what I want them to know so they can operate the business the way I want it to go. That is the biggest mistake a lot of us make, me too included, okay? With an operations manual, you are doing the preliminary work so that when it comes time to hire someone, you can hand them the manual, just like when you're onboarding at a job in corporate America. It's a document that contains information of how your business operates. It has the key information about the business. It has the chain of command. It has the nitty-gritty details of working in the business, the processes. And it does have a company culture to the operations manual and a subliminal company secrets. Like, for instance, you've been around people that start working somewhere, and after about 3 or 4 months, you kind of, maybe if they're really hyped up on the business, you really don't want them around sometimes, because you're like, man, you know what? They drink the Kool-Aid at that business, that all they talk about is that business and everything they do and all of the processes and how they're so interwoven and integrated in it. And basically that business that they're working for really is their business if you hear them talk. Well, what it is a lot of times, whoever they're working for, like let's just take Coca-Cola. If they're working for Coca-Cola, they have been exposed to so many things through the operations manual and the processes. So it becomes like they begin to engage and own it. And that's what a good operations manual does. It helps the employee and the business run more sensibly. So the difference, a lot of people say, well, I have a business plan. Okay, well, there's a difference between an operations manual and a business plan. The business plan, of course, as you know from our previous workshops, is the description of your business. It's the strategic plan for the business. It has all of the competition environment, who likes you, who you're going to market to, what you're going to sell, the services you're going to offer, the price point. It has on there your plans for who you're going to hire or that you're bringing in on the business. It has your company financials, your projections, how much you're going to make, how much money you're going to need, where you're going to go in 3 years. It has all of that. It's a plan. That's what it is. That is, first of all, the biggest part of it. The second part that and the banks don't need this part, is the operation manual. That defines the processes that needs to be finished to achieve those goals. It's the operating plan that supports your strategic business plan. It has the how to take whatever is in the services that you offer and explain how to offer those services, what you're going to do, the process for bringing a customer on, how to handle them, the day-to-day operations. Basically, it is the applications and execution of the business plan. A perfect example that I can give you, and I'm going to switch over to the government side. Remember the EIDL, the Economic Injury Disaster Loan, the Economic Injury Disaster Advance, the Paycheck Protection Program. When Congress approved it and it was handed over to SBA, and Congress did their press release saying that we just approved it and within a week, everybody's going to get funds. Well, maybe they said within a month. And so all of us, all the small businesses was waiting on that month or that week, whatever the deadline was. Well, what Congress didn't tell you is there needed to be an operation plan written to how to execute the law that they approved. And what ended up happening when they handed it over to SBA, it took longer for them to bring that agreement to fruition because they had to write a plan. And some of the things in the plan did not coincide with how to disperse the money. That was the operation side. And that's why it's important when you're creating a plan is to create an operations manual so that you can make both of them marry each other. Does that make sense? Does anybody have any questions before I go on? Okay.
Oh, that makes a lot of sense. Thank you.
Mm-hmm. Okay, so policies, procedures, and processes. As I said, the policies, that's the why the EIDL was written. The procedures, that's the what do we do? Okay, and then the processes, the very important part is the how do we do it? The same thing in our business. You have a plan, the business plan. It's the why are you doing it? Then you have the procedures. You write the procedures for what you're going to do with the why. And then the processes, which is the operation, how you're going to do it. That's simple. Okay. So to bring it home. Okay, go on.
I have a quick question here. So if I'm in a wannabe entrepreneur, so to speak,
Mm-hmm.
and I want to start this business. I don't know, florist or whatever it is.
Mm-hmm.
If I've done my homework, I've looked up, everything I needed to do. I have a fascination with flowers. Very well spoken when it comes to plants and those things. So that part of it I have down packed. But what about the stuff that I don't know? I don't know what I don't know. So how do I go about putting together a policy plan or a procedure plan or a quote operations manual if if I've never really traveled that road? Want to be an entrepreneur really, really bad, but how do I make that piece happen?
I'm glad you asked that question. And you are leading into the next slide, what we're going to talk about. It starts with, first of all, step one, understanding the process. Okay. Everything has a process. And we all can learn from all the processes. Like, for instance, you said you have a passion as a florist. You know how to create a floral design arrangement. And maybe you have worked years on that, but that's the back of the house. You're not familiar with the front of the house. Just like the back of the house, when you're creating that floral arrangement, there was a process to creating it. Okay. So you just need to learn the front of the house so you can create that and then marry the two together. Okay. So one of the things we need to do first is understand the process, so then you can apply it to everything. And
Okay.
that is a great segue leading into the next slide, which is we're going to do a little exercise. Okay. Take a few minutes. Well, take a minute and just jot down how do you make a peanut butter and jelly sandwich?
Okay.
Okay. And I'll give you a few minutes. Let me I'll give you 30 seconds. It won't take you long. And then I'll call on you to give your response, because it's very important that you understand the process. Okay. So let me set my timer, as you're already probably writing it down. How to do it. Okay. And do 30 seconds. Okay. Ready. I'll give y'all 30 seconds. Make sure you cover everything. But 30 seconds is a long time. Okay. Time. Y'all ready? Before I show you the answer, who wants to go first? And let me get my tablet out, because I'm going to make sure when I come back that okay, so who wants to go first telling me how they make a peanut butter sandwich?
Well, you know what? I'm going to take a stab at that, but I got to warn you. I've got an operations background and in manufacturing, plant manager and operations manager. So I'm virtually going to start from here out, and I'll give you my quick answer. First of all, I will have a blueprint. I'll draw a blueprint of what a peanut butter jelly sandwich looked like. I'll get all the parts approved. Then I have to get the raw materials ordered. And then I have to get them to the assembly line, and then get the people on the assembly line to, handle the bread, handle the peanut butter, handle the jelly, and then get them to assemble that all together on the assembly line, and then go through packaging and palletizing and all of that. So that's just my skin on the manufacturing of peanut butter and jelly sandwich. I know.
Brother Ron, do you want to add anything to that? Did he hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you.
Okay. So you kind of killed it, but let me just go on and show you.
Okay.
Okay, so you gather the materials needed for the sandwich. just like you said, okay? One of the things a lot of people, because you're thinking visually, you might have left out the butter knife, the 2 slices of bread. You would just said, gather the materials, okay? You lay out the 2 slices like you said. You even explain how to twist the jar to open it, okay? What to use the knife for, how to spread it, how to open the jar of jelly, same thing. Take out the spoon, and why a spoon instead of a knife, you know? You scoop it out, you pick up the bread, and it just goes into exactly how you do it. Now, why is this important? Because as I mentioned earlier, a lot of times when you start a business and you start to grow and you're ready to scale up, you say, you know, you hear this a lot of times from small business owners says, man, I want to hire somebody, but I just don't have the time for them to follow me around and learn what I do. Okay. When you have someone following you around and learning what you do, they're going to do everything exactly the way you do it, because that's how you're training them, whether it's right or wrong. What they don't have is your thinking on the spot in your head. When something is wrong, you know how to improvise and revise, okay? They're doing it the way you do it, whether it's right or wrong. And if they hit a bump in the road, they're not going to have that skill set. They might have it to improvise and revise because you taught them this one way, okay? With a process, because this is what this is. This is a process that is in your operations manual. With a process, they have a point of reference to go back to. And of course, in processes, which in the military, they call them standard operating procedures, if the process changes, you revise it, okay? This is more, what do they call it? Palatable, I can't say that. This is more, now I got a tongue tie.
Palatable?
Yes, to the person, thank you, to the person, then you following you around. Because if they followed you around and the process changed, then they're going to call you or they're going to look for you. Now, that's okay if you have 1 employee, but if you have 50 employees with 50 different processes, you're going to get 50 different phone calls at any given time. So you become still engaged and married to your business, and you can't step away and grow your business because everybody is a little mini you, because that's how you train them. Does that make sense?
Sure does.
So an operations manual stops that. It helps you to be able to onboard an employee and give them the proper training to grow them, and also give them the, I guess, encouragement and support to be able to want to not only take on and engage in your company, but if they see maybe a way of doing a documented process better, they can come to you, feel safe enough. They say, hey, I think I can save us a little bit more time and money if we change the process this way. And of course, there will be a process for revision and testing. This helps your business to continue to grow. And it's not all what you set up in the mirrored effect, it's what the business has created. And this is why an operation plan sometimes doesn't get off the ground, because a lot of business owners are scared that they're going to lose control of their business if they put something like this into place. Any questions? Okay, so operations manual includes the company, basically the company chain of command. Okay, it's going to have who's on first, basically who's in charge, who's the president. It's going to have the flow chart, the organizational chart. Okay, who the president is, who falls under the president, and then who falls under that, then the departments, who the supervisor is, or the supervising position will be in that. A lot of times you don't see actually the name until you drill down completely to the department you're in, but who the supervisor is, and then what positions are fall under each supervisor. Each one of the positions, including the president, will have a job description. And each one of the job descriptions, of course, are attached to that flow chart. There will be contact details. And then under all of that, on the next page will be your documented processes. How to make a peanut butter and jelly sandwich, how to answer a phone, what you put in an email, how to return an email. What is the follow-up time on a sales call? What's the follow-up time on a returned merchandise item? How do you inventory things? You see how that works? These are all processes. But it starts with an outline of what goes into your operations plan. Does that make sense? Now, some of you might be saying, but I'm just a broker, or I'm just a consultant, or I sell online. So this doesn't really apply to me because I'm a one-man show, okay? Well, this is the thing. Everything has a process. And if you align yourself with the processes in the beginning, then you are preparing yourself to scale up for the end. And even if you don't want to scale up and have more than 1 or 2 employees, it's just always going to be you. Processes help you to stay on point and not do a lot of time wasting. They're not processes, but time wasting things because you didn't have a process in place. Also, in a operations plan, there's always emergency procedures. Now, this is more important today than it was yesterday because of the pandemic, the stay at home, the stay in place, shelter in place, and tornadoes, floods, hurricanes, fires, all of those things. This is important so that your business can continue on when a natural disaster or something like the pandemic happens. This is where a lot of businesses fell short in 2020 because they didn't have emergency procedures in place. So you say, as Brother Daniel asked earlier, how to create an operations manual? Well, it starts with the calendar, okay? Starts with a calendar. And if you're a sole proprietor, that's the first place it starts. It's with the calendar. You get out your calendar and you, first of all, write down everything you do. Like you kind of have it in your head. Monday, I return all my email. I follow up. Tuesday, I have appointments. Wednesday, if you're a manufacturing company, I do manufacturing. Thursday, I ship out. Friday, I do inventory. Whichever business industry you're in, you have a plan of how you do things. So you write that on the calendar. From the calendar, you create a checklist. So you put on the checklist emails, email follow-up, inventory, order product, services, create services, cold call, open the store if you have a location, train employees if you have employees. You just put all of that on the checklist from what was on your calendar, okay? After you put everything on a checklist, you group everything. If it's personnel, you group all of that together. If it's training, you group all of that together. Customer service, you group all of that together. Products and services, you group that together. Now you have them in groups. You go back and you define each one of the processes. And you say, well, I'll just hire somebody. Yes, but before you do, you still have to have a checklist. Because if you don't, when you hire somebody to do this, they're going to have to create it, basically shooting in the dark what they think you might need. By providing them a checklist and a skeleton of what you want, it helps you to get what you want in your version of it than what they think, sell you what they think you want. Okay. So you define each one of the processes, like for instance, the peanut butter and jelly sandwich. From that process, as Brother Daniel so eloquently laid out, you would create a blueprint. You would have a parts process. You would have a raw material process from order, inventory into ordering. You would have an assembly process, how to assemble it. You would have how to handle the jelly. In other words, how to actually put it together, assemble it, he said. Then you have packaging. Also, the last part, you would have distribution. So see, from just the peanut butter and jelly sandwich, there are so many different processes you have to define. You can take that to an email. You would open the email. You would determine if it's priority or just a follow-up. Or if you have to create an email, you would open the email, you would create it. You would have a certain way that you would, a standard template of how you would respond to someone or request something or inquire or request a respond to someone, the way the company wants you. So there's a process for that. Also a process for who do you copy on the email, okay? Who do you forward the emails to? What documents can you attach? What can't you attach? What do you have to get approved before you attach stuff? It's all about the process and how you follow through on the process is your workflow. That goes into creating the checklist and then all of the things from the checklist. Does that make sense? Okay.
Yep,
Oh,
sure does.
okay. So then after that, you're looking at all of these processes, and I always recommend do one at a time, because if you try to do all of them, and as small business owners, we try to do a whole bunch at a time so that we can save time. That's what we're thinking. But do one at a time. So you look at the process, the peanut butter and jelly sandwich. You look at that process, the workflows. Now you go back and you say, okay, who can I assign the blueprints to? Who can I assign being over the raw materials? Who can I assign, the assembly to? So you assign the work, okay? And it won't be so much, say if it's just you, it won't be so much as assign it to a real person. It will be the position. Like for instance, the raw materials will be warehouse, because they're going to be over the inventory, they're going to be over the ordering, they're going to be over distributing it out and reordering, keeping the cost down. So that'll be the warehouse. Then it's then the assembly will be the manufacturing side. Okay, they're going to be over when they receive the order, how they set up schedules for assembling, how they set up schedules for packaging it. And then there's a shipping department. What do they do after they get it? How do they ship it out? When they ship it out, how do they track it? So you just create the positions and the departments that you're going to assign it to. Then you have a way to monitor the progress. Of course, the easiest part is the assembly. There's usually a deadline. Once they receive it, how much time do they have before they assemble it and get it over to shipping? Shipping, of course, there's deadlines for that too. Once they get it, they have to ship it out and everything. The part that's the biggest for monitoring is going to start at the beginning, the blueprints. Okay, and how soon, the timeline for that, and that sometimes depends on if it's a blueprint for something that is something that you keep in stock or a service that is ongoing, a baseline, a foundation, or is this something that's, customized? And then that will that will determine when you set up the timelines and how to monitor and the follow through. The whole time you're doing this, you collaborate with your team, okay? If you're a company that have employees, you don't make it all about when you want it. You see, what are their capabilities? When can they have a turnaround time? What is the assembly department, depending on the warehouse? Is the shipping department depending on the assembly? So you need to collaborate with all of the teams together so that it's a steady and even workflow. It all works together. Now, in the beginning, if it's just you of course will go through the process, put everything in writing, and it can be revised later when others are actually doing it. But at least you have something for them to look at and to work with to start it. And as I said, when you implement it, for a sole proprietor, the best way to do it is map out 30 days with the processes from the business plan, okay? And then sit down, put it on the calendar and plan it that way because it's just you, okay? And you'll say every Monday, I am returning calls, following up on emails, following through on maybe things that finishing projects, looking at the timeline, seeing where you progressed. That is your basic follow-up day. And every Friday, I am doing this before I close down for the weekend. Or if you're open on the weekend, what are you doing? What are you going to need for that weekend to be successful? Because most of the time, most businesses are closed on the weekend. So there's some things you might need to line up on Friday so that you're successful on the weekend. Okay, but with company that have staff, what you would do after you've done a preliminary process, operations plan, you give each manager of that department the process that applies to them, their documents. And you tell that manager, hey, go through this, instruct them to follow it for 14 days, document everything that they do, who they turned it over to, what revisions they would do if necessary, and y'all meet back in 14 days. And you discuss it first of all with each manager one-on-one, and then you put them all together so that, say for instance, this manager in shipping said, we were able to do some of these things, but one of the things that held us up is when it came from assembly, we had to stop and make sure that the labels were correct before we put them in the package. Or some of the labels were missing, or some of the sandwiches were not as quality control as the ones they sent. There was no continuity, no standardization. So we had to throw a couple out, request some more. That is something that needs to be discussed with both in the room. Whereas the assembly said we had to hurry up and do some of this stuff because warehouse didn't get all of our materials to us in time, and they subbed some of the things with other things. So that's how come we had to do certain things a certain way. See, when you talk to them separately, you get what each department did individually. But when you talk to them together, you get how they lean on each process required the first process to follow through so that the second process will be successful. It's all about the operations and the flow of the business and how it works together. As a sole proprietor, though, you're doing this yourself. And if you don't document and actually follow the process, you just do it, then you won't be able to scale up when the time comes, because some of the things are in your head and not on paper. And unfortunately, the people you hire are not mind readers. So they don't know that this step that you do in your head is a step that's essential to move the product along. Does that make sense?
Absolutely.
So plain and simple, working the process for success. There is no perfect process. If there was, Coca-Cola would not be always reinventing themselves. There is no, or AT&T would not always be looking for a better way to do things or set up employees. There's no perfect process. It's always ready to change and revise with the times. Then when you implement, be open to revisions, not revisions all the time, revisions that are effective. Okay, so you implement, you revise, and you apply. Okay, and then you start over again. You implement, revise, and you apply. Some companies have a department that just goes over the processes all the time. You will find this more so in IT because they have to. They have to always be going over the processes, because if they don't, they will get a lot more computer glitches and bugs, because when a software that they use does not interface or integrate with the software that they're working with, if they don't keep it updated, then there's always problems. The computer will shut down or the program won't work. That's how come, if anybody that has a computer, you always have to update. And that's the way it is with processes. You have to update. And the best way to update is plan your work, and then work the plan. And if it doesn't work, address it immediately so that you can implement, revise, and apply. Does that make sense? Okay. So it's very simple. And the reason why it's very simple is because you've done most of the work. You've done your business plan. You looked at your financials. You've planned out how you're going to do this. You have a marketing plan. All you're doing is taking what's in the business plan and putting it into a process and making an operations manual. Now, these are some of the resources that I use, okay? Of course, there's SBDC and SCORE, but as I mentioned, and WBE, Unite with the Houston Business Council, all of those can help you. But most of the time, they help you with the business plan because they're about helping you get the resources as far as finances, investing, and things like that. There's not too many resources out there for the operations plan because it's the second part of a business when they're ready to grow and scale up. Okay, so I did some research, and the EdLo organization has information on how to write an operations manual. They're for second tier growth businesses. And then Scale Time and Process Operation Manual are both, they provide a lot of information, but they also sell you software to help you, apps to help you to create an operations plan. So as you go through that, you'll see, you'll get pop-ups on the last two trying to sell you what they want. But there's a lot of information on there that can help you. Are there any questions?
So from what I gather, from what you've mentioned and covered, my operations manual is going to be a work in progress, constant work in progress.
Yes.
And as I grow, my processes will change and my manual will change. So it's important to stay in front of that.
Yes. And it can be very simple, Brother Daniel. I have an operations manual. Let me see if I can pull it up. So, and I have to change it. Let me share, see if I can share this. Okay. Share. And this was one I did in a class that I took for operations manual. See, can you see that? Did Did it pull up?
Yep, it came up.
Okay, so this is one that I did just the outline, okay, the calendar review. But okay, so I would do from day one what I needed to work on, okay, and I would go through and what I needed to do in each one of them. What I had okay, so this right here, I'm rewriting because I hired a contract, someone to do contract work for me. I have to go through and write processes for how to do the manufacturing side of my product. And the reason why I have to write processes for it, I know how to do it, I know what to do, but they don't. And I'm not going to be here when they're doing these things, okay? Because that's why I hired someone, so I can do other things, okay? And so I had to hire someone, I had to break down, I'm sorry, how to create a master batch. What goes into my my soap oil batch, how to create and mass produce my body butters and lotions. Now, also with my operations of this, my processes, they have to sign in the packet I gave them, they have to sign a confidentiality, something that I found out that I needed. And big manufacturing companies do this also, is because this process gives them the recipes, okay? So I had to include that in there because they're gonna have the recipes because they need to make these items, you know, master batch them. So I had to go back in each one of these, like the number 2 and number 4 and number 5 and number 6. There's like, for number 2 alone, there's like 8 pages just of the process of how to do it. Number 1 is 4 pages, but before the process itself, I had to go in and talk about safety and give a little spill on education on safety and the protection gear they have to wear and everything just to do the process itself. And I thought at first when I handed them this, you know, to look over, I was like, okay, this is easy. And the first thing they said is, what is loss solution? I knew what it was, but they didn't. So it's simple things like that that you have to do. And so each one of when you're doing it and always changing, like you said, it's ongoing. I created this thinking that will be enough, but in the end, I had to do more. It's ongoing. And as the more I grow, the more I will have to add to it. Just like for my shrink wrap of soaps, I just purchased I guess one step up, a shrink wrap system. So now I have to go in and put instructions on how to do that and take out the old instructions of when we were doing it manually. So you're always going to be updating your plan so that you would be successful in growing your business. Did I answer your question, kind of?
No, you did. Absolutely. Yeah. And even in the commercial side, processes change, and you got to keep those operations manual updated, else you hit a brick wall really quickly, and not to mention your quality control totally goes out the window.
Yeah.
Great answer.
You said something right there. You hit a brick wall. See, even if you're a solopreneur, entrepreneur, with an operations manual, sometimes you can have one of those weeks that a lot of things happen that you didn't see coming, fires that you had to put out. And sometimes having your operations manual, after you finish putting out the fires, you need to get back on point. You can pull it out and say, okay, what do I need to work on right now? I need to get focused. You can pull the operations manual out and just, start from there to get back on track.
Okay. Excuse me. Okay, that makes a lot of sense to me. Going back to the beginning, and you did clear it up. I mean, when it comes to mission statement and operations manual, um, you know, how when you do this operations manual, how concise? I mean, like when you asked the question about how to build a peanut butter sandwich, I went all the way to, um, for example, blueprinting, and maybe the whole process takes years instead of days. But is it essential to have every little nook and cranny covered, versus doing a visual with somebody and letting them kind of fill in the blanks as they may?
That is a great question. It depends on your company culture. You remember I said that some people want to hire somebody, but they want them to follow them around, make
Hmm.
themselves a mini me, basically.
Yeah.
Well, if you want a mini me, then you're going to be pretty much as concise as you want because you want it a certain way, right?
Hmm.
But if you just want someone that can grow with your business and just make a generic process, and if they want to change it some and you approve it, you leave room for that. So you can make it as concise as you want, detailed as you want, or you can make it as broad as you want. It's your business and it's your operations plan.
Okay, that makes sense.
Mhm. But one thing I will say, we can't assume that the person on the other side reading your processes gets it the way you do.
Hmm.
So you have to make sure that you put enough of detail so they will understand and follow through. Because, if you tell someone, I need you to inventory this box of product, and then I need you to restock the shelves. So they inventory the product and they go and restock the shelves. And you come back and it's like, that's not what I wanted. I wanted you to put the oldest to the front, put the newest inventory in the back. And I wanted to only have 6 of each of the products on the shelf and the rest you put in the back. You didn't say that in the process, you see?
Right.
So they're not gonna, they're gonna read it and they'll be like, that's not what you said. Right? So
Wow. Yep. That makes sense.
that's kind of why you need an operations manual, because everybody don't know what's up here. Only you do.
Yeah, and a good point. When that intellectual wealth leaves, the person that showed you how to do everything, when he leaves or when she leaves, then what do you do for replacement purposes if there is no quote operations manual? Somebody just learned from the next guy. He takes off and leave or gets promoted, whatever it is, then like you said, you can hit a brick wall relatively quickly.
Yes.
Wow. Well, that was some real great information, some essential information. It seems like the information that you shared is, just as essential as having a mission statement, or a business plan. Is what I wanted to say. A business plan. Have the business plan. You got to have that. You know, the information about the type of business you want to start, and you want to be able to hand it to somebody to get support. But if you get that business started and you don't have your operations down pat and of how you want to get your product to market, well, you're in for a rude awakening, I would say. Okay, well, we certainly appreciate that. We're finishing up early today because we wanted to spend the time mostly recording Christine's presentation for first met TV. So Christine, we appreciate you sharing that information with us. Any final words that you would have for entrepreneurs or business owners out there?
Um, it's your dream, it's your passion. And yes, you're going to have good days and bad days, but at the end of the day, it's what you make of it. And if you have gone into business for whatever reason, to be a success or to make it your livelihood, own it and go from there.
Okay. Now, something I mentioned in the introduction that I'd like to have you back up on, Chris, and cover is you own a business called Pampered Sisters.
Mm-hmm.
Can you give us a description about that business? You know, as well as when you started it, how long you've been in it, and how it even came to be for you to create that type of business, because that was created from the ground up, I assume, and not a franchise.
Yes, yes. Thank you. Pamper Sisters was something created out of love. I've had several other businesses from I had a couple of restaurants, a few restaurants, Barn Grills and Tyler Airport, College Station, the Beaumont, the Golden Triangle, and then I had a Popeyes franchise in San Antonio, all before 911, which affected me tremendously. And so when I had to give up those businesses because the airlines were not returning to smaller airports, I went back into corporate America doing accounting. In accounting, it can be stressful, especially at the end of the year. And in corporate accounting, there's always a pool of women that are passing around a card for birthdays and gifts and wanting to do something for somebody in the office, and they want you to add to the card money. And so I was making soaps that my grandma taught me how to make as a child. And I was doing it as a hobby, and I do it during stress months because it's something that just helped me through, something to get my mind off of work. So I decided I would start giving a soap or a lotion that I made from, scratch, using natural body butters and luxury oils as a gift instead of putting money with it. Pretty soon people started requesting it for gift baskets and stuff. Even my boss will request them for gift baskets to give to some of his corporate accounts. And so I would just charge what the materials was. And I would be up sometimes at 2 and 3 in the morning making these gift baskets. And my mom, that was staying with me at the time because of her lupus, had just closed her business. She was an interior designer. And she came down the stairs one day and she said, how much are they paying you for that? And I said, nothing, just the cost. And she's like, huh, okay, you're gonna learn. And I was like, Mom, everything's not about money. And she's like, oh, you're gonna learn. So I eventually learned somebody wasn't appreciative of the gift. They wanted it a certain way. And I said, I'm gonna start charging for it. And so my mom was the one that came up with Pampered Sisters. And from there, it became a business. And I started selling it at markets and shows and online. And then I noticed that the pool for soap makers was large. But for minority soap makers, it was small and it was a very hard pool to get in. So I started going after wholesale accounts. And that is where I thrive, is doing wholesale accounts, making handcrafted soaps and lotions, sugar scrubs, body butters, all of the above. And I created a YouTube channel where I make the items and everything, and use some of my business things that I've learned and incorporate it into business. And the handbook, the operations manual is the last part I incorporated because I do want to grow because I'm only one person. But manufacturing is something of soaps is something I love to do, and creating jobs is something I really want to do. So for that reason, as I grow and scale up, I don't want to turn to mass automated manufacturing for my products. I do want to pass on this craft, this skill to others and keep it handmade so I can hire more people to do this craft and this skill. So I kind of have a twofold. I want this business to grow, but I want it to grow where I can benefit others by creating jobs for them and also teaching them a skill in this business for Pampers Sisters. So it's a twofold business. I do create handcrafted artisan bath products, but I do want to also empower others to not only be employees, but to want to, if they do, create their own business. So that's a little bit about me and my business.
Wow. I tell you what, to be honest with you, that sounds like a very, very franchisable business. Man, I tell you what, because I think I even asked you this question a few weeks ago. We use a lot of candles around our home. My wife does, and it is kind of worn on me too now. And we have all of these used up jars, or jars of candle with maybe a quarter of an inch or half an inch even sometimes in it, or more around the sides where it's kind of melted only in the middle. So I think I was asking you about recycling it and how you can
Yes.
take that wax and use it for new ones. So.
And I do have a couple of clients that bring their from, as a lot of them from First Met, they bring their jars to me, and they have special scents they want, and I recycle their jars and give them a customized price because they've already supplied the container, and I create them. They wanted to match the decor, like say for instance your decor is olive or mustard or something like that.
Mhm.
And your favorite scent is lavender or peppermint or rosemary or something fruity. I create, do those for them so they could do that. Yeah.
Okay, I have to keep that in mind and let Cassandra know as well that we can grab some of those large jars that we typically throw away, bring them back to you to recycle. I mean, whether we, ask for something to go back in that same jar or not, do you take candle jars as recyclable events, or would you prefer not to?
I take them for that customer, but because of sanitation and
Yeah,
sterilization and all that, I don't take them to resell them to others because they were your
yeah,
jars, came from
yeah.
your
Okay,
house.
okay, great. Well, again, we actually started this meeting a little early, so we're going to finish a little early. Kristen King, we appreciate the presentation today on creating operations manual, and we would be remiss if we didn't talk about all of the other hands that you have put on the various other topics this year. You were, in my estimation, responsible for more than half of the topics that we used in 2021. So thank you again for that. And we're going to close with a word of prayer. Lord, we thank you so much for what you're doing. We thank you for the marketplace ministry, and we thank you for blessing our businesses. And we welcome you in, and we welcome you to be a part of our business, because if it's your business and not ours, it'll grow, it'll be sustainable, and we can use it to be a blessing to both ourselves, our church, and our family. So we ask you to be a part of our businesses, allow us to be great stewards with our business, and we bind the enemy that would come against us, but we ask that you have your way in our lives. And also, God, in the name of Marketplace Ministry, allow our businesses to be used as platforms to meet other people and to introduce them and bring them to Christ. In Jesus Christ's name we pray. Amen.
Amen.
Okay, well, thank you, Sister King. We did have some other folks join. We appreciate it, and we are going to sign off. and give you some extra time back today this Saturday morning. Take care, be blessed, and I'll see you in church.
Okay, bye-bye.
Bye-bye.